The Omen, born from a producer's casual lunch conversation, a simple what if about the Antichrist walking the earth, hidden in plain sight. This gets real weird. Lightning strikes, plane crashes, terrorist attacks. Was the movie cursed? Maybe the devil wasn't too happy about his story being told. This is The Omen, and these are 20 unsettling truths you never knew. Number 1. It was supposed to be a low-budget B-movie. The whole story of The Omen didn't kick off with some big Hollywood pitch or grand idea. It actually started in a pretty simple way. Just a producer, Harvey Bernhard, chatting with a friend about the Antichrist, and then scribbling a rough idea down on a napkin. From there, he brought in writer David Seltzer to flesh it out, and the plan at first was super modest. It was supposed to be a quick, low-budget horror movie, the kind of thing that would hit drive-ins and grindhouse theaters for a couple of weeks, make a little money, and then quietly fade away. Nobody was expecting it to become a cultural moment. When they first tried shopping the script around, Warner Brothers didn't even want it. To them, it just looked like a cheap attempt to cash in on the success of The Exorcist, which had already set the bar ridiculously high for religious horror. But then along came Alan Ladd Jr. over at 20th Century Fox, and he saw something different. Instead of treating it like a throwaway B-movie, he thought it could actually work as a big, serious thriller with real stars and a proper budget. Thanks to his backing, the whole thing got a major glow-up. The budget went up, a big-name actor was brought in for the lead, and suddenly what started as a scrappy little horror flick was being shaped into a high-profile Hollywood event. Number 2. The screenwriter was inspired by an ad man. The central nightmare behind The Omen didn't crawl out of Stephen King's typewriter or some horror director's whiskey-soaked imagination. Nope. Credit goes to Robert Munger, an advertising executive. Yes, the guy who normally convinced people to buy laundry detergent ended up pitching the Antichrist. It was 1973, and Munger, who just so happened to be a devout evangelical Christian, pitched to producer Harvey Bernhard that biblical prophecy suggested the Antichrist might already be alive, not as a horned demon with glowing eyes, but as some innocent-looking kid. Bernhard was so rattled by the idea that he did what any smart producer would do. He immediately handed the nightmare off to a writer. Enter David Seltzer, who took this unholy elevator pitch and spent a whole year turning it into a screenplay. And just like that, The Omen was born. A film about evil lurking beneath the surface of everyday life, which, fittingly enough, also describes the advertising industry. Number 3. It was lost to 1 star for a tragic reason. Before Gregory Peck signed on, the role of Ambassador Robert Thorne was first offered to Charlton Heston. He declined, and tragically so. Heston's son Fraser had recently died by suicide, making the story's focus on a father and his tormented child far too painful. In a grim twist of fate, Peck was also grieving the recent suicide of his own son, Jonathan. Yet instead of stepping away, he channeled that grief into a performance of haunting authenticity, giving Robert Thorne the tormented depth that turned the film from mere horror into a psychological gut punch. Number 4. The curse began with multiple lightning strikes. The cast and crew went through a whole lot of torment while filming this movie. This trouble started in September 1975 when Gregory Peck's plane to London was struck by lightning over the Atlantic. The engine caught fire, and the plane nearly went down. Weeks later, executive producer Mace Neufeld boarded his own flight. Zap, another lightning strike. Then screenwriter David Seltzer got on a separate plane. Zap again. 3 different planes, 3 lightning strikes. The stormy vendetta didn't stop there. While filming in Rome, producer Harvey Bernhard was standing in a piazza when a bolt of lightning struck just feet away from him. Number 5. The film crew survived an IRA bombing. As if divine wrath wasn't enough, the production also collided with real-world terrorism. London in the mid-70s was in the middle of intense IRA bombing campaigns, which made it the least relaxing film location since Vietnam. One night, director Richard Donner's hotel was bombed. Luckily, he and the crew weren't inside, They were stuck working late on set. On another day, Mace Neufeld and several crew members were running late to a restaurant. A bomb went off minutes before they would have arrived, shattering windows and reducing the place to rubble. Between the lightning bolts, the bombs, and, honestly, just common sense, it is safe to say that someone upstairs really didn't want the Omen to exist. Number 6. The baboon's attack was frighteningly real. The infamous safari park scene where the Thorns' car is swarmed by baboons wasn't a triumph of method acting or clever editing. It was 100% real panic. During filming at Windsor Safari Park, the car carrying Lee Remick and little Harvey Stevens stalled right in the middle of the baboon enclosure. That's already the start of a bad day. To make the scene more authentic, handlers decided to toss a dominant alpha baboon into another car nearby, just to rile the troop up. Oh, and to really spice things up, they didn't feed the baboons beforehand. The plan worked a little too well. The entire troop went absolutely feral, slamming into the car, shrieking, clawing at the glass, and basically auditioning for Planet of the Apes Murder Edition. Lee Remick's blood-curdling screams in the scene was not acting. That was the sound of a woman realizing she'd rather be in literally any other movie. And because this film wasn't already cursed enough, the animal trainer who worked on that exact scene was killed the next day by a tiger. Number 7. It has a secret biblical backstory. What made The Omen more than just another monster flick was how deeply it leaned into real biblical prophecy. Screenwriter David Seltzer mined the Book of Revelation for material: 666, beasts rising from political chaos, ominous portents, all the good Sunday school nightmare fuel. For audiences in the 70s, this wasn't just movie mythology. It felt like a documentary about the end of the world. Suddenly, Damien wasn't just a creepy kid in a horror film. He was a terrifying what-if scenario backed by scripture. Number 8. The evil Rottweilers were actually sweethearts. The menacing black Rottweilers guarding Damien on screen weren't exactly Satan's attack dogs in real life. The lead pup was a total sweetheart who'd rather lick the crew than terrify them. Richard Donner, determined not to harm the animals, had to trick the dog into looking scary, basically playing fetch until it barked, then yelling, "Roll camera." However, this cuteness didn't last. During the graveyard attack scene, the dogs went off script, sinking their teeth straight through a stuntman's protective gear and drawing blood. For one brief, horrifying moment, the devil's pets actually lived up to their reputation. Number 9. The director was a TV veteran. Before Richard Donner terrified audiences with The Omen, he was a TV lifer. The man had directed just about everything: The Twilight Zone, The Fugitive, Kojak, The Streets of San Francisco, even The Banana Splits. This background gave him the perfect toolkit for horror. Episodic TV taught him how to move fast, build suspense without wasting a second, and deliver a cliffhanger punch that made viewers spit out their TV dinners. He didn't approach The Omen as an arty, slow-burn ghost story. He shot it like a TV episode on steroids: tight pacing, relentless action, every scare landing like a commercial brake stinger. Number 10. The soundtrack won an Oscar by terrifying everyone. Composer Jerry Goldsmith didn't just write a score for The Omen, he basically summoned one. His main theme, Avi Satani, is the musical equivalent of selling your soul with surround sound. Inspired by Gregorian chants, Goldsmith flipped the script and created a full-blown Black Mass, complete with ominous Latin lyrics he penned himself. Translations included such light-hearted lines as "Hail Satan" and "We drink the blood, we eat the flesh." You know, the kind of stuff that really kills the vibe at Sunday brunch. The music wasn't background, it was a character clawing its way out of the soundtrack to make sure you didn't sleep that night. And it worked. The score was so terrifying it won Goldsmith his first and only Oscar. Fitting that the one time the Academy rewarded him was for writing a hymn straight out of hell. All right, if you're enjoying this video, do me a favor and click on that like button. Let's appease the dark lords of the algorithm. Say a quick prayer and subscribe. The story gets so much worse from here, and the most disturbing part of the legend is still to come. Fact number 12 involves a real-life decapitation that was such a horrifying mirror of a scene in the film. Number 11, the director pitched it as a mystery, not a horror film. Convincing Gregory Peck to star in a movie about Satan's toddler was tricky. In the 70s, horror film was basically code for cheap schlock and rubber monster masks, well beneath a Hollywood legend. So Richard Donner did what any desperate director would do. He lied through his teeth. Sitting in Peck's living room, he swore, "Gregory, this isn't horror, it's a psychological mystery thriller." He framed it as the story of a rational man slowly losing his grip on reality, unsure whether the evil around him was real or just in his head. No monsters, no cheap scares, just paranoia, dread, and existential breakdown. That pitch worked like a charm. Peck signed on thinking he was making a classy psychological drama. Joke's on him. He ended up in the most famous satanic horror film of all time. Number 12. A real-life decapitation mirrored a scene from the film. The single most horrifying event tied to the Omen curse played out like a sick joke written by the devil himself. On Friday, August 13, 1976, because of course it was Friday the 13th, special effects wizard John Richardson, the guy responsible for designing the film's grisly death scenes, was in the Netherlands working on another project. Fate decided it was time to test his own handiwork. Richardson was in a head-on collision. He survived, but his assistant Liz Moore, sitting in the passenger seat, was decapitated in the crash. The manner of her death was chillingly identical to the decapitation scene Richardson had created for Jennings in The Omen. It was as if the curse had gone from saying, "Nice work," to, "Now let's see how realistic you can make it." And if that wasn't enough nightmare fuel, Richardson reportedly stumbled from the wreck, dazed and covered in blood, only to see a road sign nearby. It pointed to the town of Omen, spelled just one letter off from Omen. Below it the distance, 66.6 kilometers. It was the kind of coincidence so specific and grotesque that it felt less like chance and more like a punchline delivered straight from hell. Number 13. Executives hated the decapitation scene. The film's most infamous death, the glorious slow-motion beheading of photographer Keith Jennings via runaway sheet of glass, almost never made it to the screen. When executives at 20th Century Fox first saw it, they nearly fainted. Too graphic, too grotesque, too likely to make audiences lose their popcorn. They demanded Richard Donner cut it immediately, terrified it would sink the movie with a restrictive rating. But Donner and editor Stuart Baird dug in their heels. They argued the scene needed to stay, that the sheer, shocking brutality was the point. Death could strike anyone, anywhere, with zero warning. Eventually they won. And thank Satan they did. The decapitation became one of the most legendary jump scares in horror history, proof that sometimes the best way to a critic's heart is through a severed head. Number 14. They used a clever trick for the famous hanging scene. Then there's the unforgettable opening shocker, Damien's nanny cheerfully shouting, "It's all for you, Damien," before hanging herself at his birthday party. No CGI, no cheats, just one very gutsy stunt woman and some old-school trickery. Hidden under her dress was a special harness and cable system. On cue, she leapt from a high ledge, smashing through rigged glass before swinging violently into place. The entire thing was done in one seamless take, a disturbingly convincing illusion of public suicide. It set the film's tone instantly, brutal, shocking, and completely unflinching. Nothing says, "Happy birthday," quite like traumatizing a yard full of children. Number 15. The boy who played Damien was cast for attacking the director. Finding the perfect child to play the Antichrist was trickier than surviving a Friday the 13th flight. Richard Donner needed a boy who looked innocent, but could also make you fear for your soul. After auditioning dozens of kids, he found his little devil in 4-year-old Harvey Stevens. During auditions, Donner asked the children to, "Come on, attack me." Most polite kids just froze, probably wondering if this was part of show and tell. Harvey Stevens, however, went full demon mode. He screamed like a tiny banshee, lunged at Donner, kicked him square in the groin, and clawed at his face. Through the pain, Donner knew he'd found his star. A feral 4-year-old with all the raw aggression a cinematic spawn of Satan could need. Number 16. The producer makes a cameo. Harvey Bernhard, the producer who first dreamed up the film while casually chatting about the Antichrist, sneaks into the movie himself. In the church climax, as Catherine Thorne teeters on the balcony, a concerned worker shouts, "Watch out!" just before Damien sends her plunging to her death. That worried worker? Bernhard himself. It's the ultimate creator meets creation moment. The man who unleashed horror onto the world gets to witness it firsthand, even if only as a background extra. Bernhard would go on to produce the entire original Omen trilogy, remaining the quiet guardian of the cinematic Antichrist he helped bring to life. Number 17. The actor who played Damien had his hair dyed. Harvey Stevens, the rambunctious blonde who won the role of Damien, had the right attitude but the wrong look. Richard Donner decided angelic curls weren't scary enough for the spawn of Satan, so he dyed Harvey's hair jet black and straightened it into a severe, almost unnatural style. That simple change transformed him from cute toddler to iconic harbinger of doom. Pale skin, piercing eyes, and that unnerving black hair. Suddenly, Damien was the blueprint for every creepy child in horror films to come. Number 18. Gregory Peck took a massive pay cut for the lead. When it came time to cast the tormented ambassador Robert Thorne, the producers swung for the fences and called Gregory Peck, the same Gregory Peck who once played Atticus Finch. By the mid-70s, Peck's career wasn't exactly setting the world on fire. He needed a hit badly, and what better way to reinvent yourself than by starring in a movie about accidentally raising the Antichrist? Peck was intrigued by the script's psychological depth, or maybe he just thought, hey, how hard can pretending to hate a kid be? Either way, he shocked Hollywood by taking a massive pay cut. Instead of his usual fee, he settled for $250,000. Interestingly, he also negotiated a deal for 10% of the film's gross profits. Translation: pay me less now, but cut me in when Satan starts making it rain. It was a huge gamble because nobody expected The Omen to make serious money. In the end, the movie raked in over $60 million in the US alone, an unholy fortune for 1976, and Peck's little 10% stake ballooned into a $6 million payout. Number 19. The Photographer's Clues. One of the film's most inventive horror twists was the character of photographer Keith Jennings, played brilliantly by David Warner. He discovers that his photos aren't just pictures, they're death notices in disguise. Shadows, blurs, and strange lines foretell the gruesome ends of their subjects. A faint streak across a priest's neck hints at impalement. A shadow over the nanny foreshadows her hanging. It's like playing supernatural Where's Waldo? With murder, turning the audience into helpless detectives tracing a trail of doom. The idea was so effective that decades later, it inspired the entire Final Destination franchise. Number 20. The studio demanded a different ending. The film's chilling final shot, Damien in the president's custody, turning to the camera with that subtle, terrifying smile, wasn't always going to come with explanation. The original ending left him alive and ominously mysterious, no context provided. The studio, however, insisted on adding the Book of Revelation title cards to spell out the Antichrist prophecy for the viewers. A little heavy-handed, sure, but nothing can compete with that final image. The boy who embodies pure evil, comfortably seated at the highest level of power, grinning like he just solved world domination before breakfast. It's one of cinema's most haunting finales, and proof that sometimes the scariest monsters wear schoolboy clothes. I want to know what part of this satanic saga will be keeping you up at night. Don't forget to impale that like button, subscribe for more dives into cinematic madness and cursed productions, and we'll see you at the next Black Mass. Just whatever you do, stay away from churches during thunderstorms, or things could get real weird.
Wow, that was weird.